Yes. Welcome, everybody, to On the Range podcast. Great to have you with me again, Rick. This time we're in our own little studios. I'm an H- lounge. You're at the Harg HO. Hey, man, if you guys are watching us on Facebook or if you're watching us on YouTube, hammer those like buttons, smash those subscription buttons. Go ahead and comment, interact with the page. If you're listening on audio, make sure you give us a rating. Leave a comment, even if it's just a emoji or one word. Go ahead and leave it. Hey, Rick, we're really excited today, man. We got a great guest. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, buddy. So, hey, guys, I'm super excited. We got my friend, Coach Tony Blauer. I mean, Tony, if you guys don't know, anything about Tony, here's a quick snippet. 40 plus years. You might fix my math there, Tony. Been studying violence, studying martial arts. Really, he is the founder of the Spear system. Always innovative, always changing, always doing stuff. You can see he's right there in the garage gym. I had the privilege of actually being there. That place is phenomenal. But Tony's kind of figured out, with all the silliness going on nowadays, how to actually still train individuals. He's got a passion for our law enforcement guys. Let him expound how he works with that and gets them training. But Tony, we've known each other, I think, since the 90s. I don't think we could iron out what year it was, but hey, brother, glad to have you on the show, man. How you doing?
Yeah, man.
Dude, I'm so excited, and I was hoping that intro was longer. I wanted to see more of it. I started to film it and everything. That's badass. But yeah, it's been a long time, and it was cool that you got to when you came out here during a course, we got to get together, eat, and catch up, and talk shop, and I know we've been trying to set up this podcast for some time, and finally fit between your schedule and my schedule. Here we are.
Yeah, buddy. And don't forget, #human weapon, right?
I see. I was going to say you look really good today, but it's the shirt.
It's the shirt.
Yeah.
It's in that medium, so it's form fitting, so it just makes all the right sizes look good. So yeah.
I think you had it tapered too, just to make you or you gained pounds.
I see where this show's going, Tony.
Right. Yeah. So I'm excited. I don't know what it is, because I grew up in Canada. I'm an American citizen now. I live in California. Don't hate me. And I'm here for the weather. Really, just here for the weather. And but I've always had a fascination with law enforcement, with military. And just growing up in Canada, it just wasn't a thing, and just how I grew up and everything. And in 1993, I was trying to get my high gear suit manufactured, and I had approached. I didn't want to be in manufacturing. I didn't know anything about it really. So I contacted the guys that made Redman, and they didn't want to have anything to do with me. They were mindful and respectful, but they said, "Hey, you need to talk to Gary Klugowitz." Didn't know the name. He said he's our Redman guy. He's in charge of Redman sales. And Gary was in law enforcement, and he was he was in charge. He was the I guess the chairman at the time of ASLET. ASLET was the acronym for the American Society of Law Enforcement Trainers. This was like 1993. And to make a long story short, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he was doing a high liability conference in Toronto, which was a 6-hour drive from where I live. I drove there, and we talked for 5 hours on my gear. I had prototypes, and he said to me, and we talked literally 5 hours on my approach to scenario-based training, which is very different and still is very different than most scenario training out there. And he said, I don't know if it was Macho was the company that made Redman. He said, I don't know if Macho will want to get involved with you because your design process and everything is completely different than what we do. He said, but I'm so fascinated with what you're talking about with respect to how to train for violence. And he said, what's your experience training cops? I said, well, I've had some cops come into my gym, but I've never really designed a course for law enforcement. And he invited me in 1993 to go speak at this event. And I did, and that totally changed the trajectory of my career. Within a year, I closed my school, which was my first biggest love. Was at 15, my mom said to me, hey, you going to the family business? Are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a doctor? Those are the three choices you had when you were in the 70s. And I said, oh, Mom, I'm going to be a martial artist like Bruce Lee. I'm going to have my own self-defense system. I'm going to teach self-defense. I mean, I knew that's what I fucking wanted to do. And the idea of closing my school after I started teaching in 1977, that was absurd. But the interest from the law enforcement world was so overwhelming that I had to close it. And I've been teaching law enforcement, military, like literally full time since 1993.
Yeah. And I mean, on that, Tony, I was kind of in the same boat when I got out, when I retired. It's like, do I establish roots and build a home range and try to have people come to me? Or do you take the mobile aspect and now you kind of travel around to people? And I think it gives you a broader client base because number one, you're saving people money on travel costs. Number two, you kind of, go here, there, everywhere. And I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's funny because now with everything going on, you've kind of, obviously you can't travel, that's been all restricted with all the craziness going on, but you've adapted very well with the whole, garage gym subscription, all that other stuff. How's that all working out for you?
Yeah. So to kind of like piggyback and elaborate on when I first started in 1993, I mean, I had no money. I wasn't, making good money teaching group classes, martial arts. I had enough to pay my rent and food and that sort of stuff. So in the beginning, man, I was like literally driving to go teach a SWAT roundup from Montreal. I drive like 3 days to go drive there to go teach. You're not getting paid. You're going to all these gigs. And it was just to get the system out there. And then it started to catch on. And like you said, I was doing stuff all over the world, traveling. In 2009, I finally set up a facility in Virginia Beach. And it was like, I created like the Disneyland for operators. I mean, it was a 21,000 foot facility. We had indoor shoot house for Sims and UTM. We had 25 high gear suits. It was the world's biggest CrossFit style gym at the time. We had an octagon in there. We had the first Digicam mats. It was pretty amazing. I don't know if you remember it, or I'll send you pictures of it. It was pretty badass. But for decades, I did the road stuff, and then I said, I'm gonna set up a home range. In this case, it was obviously for hand-to-hand stuff. But when flash forward 11 years, and then we get all the COVID stuff. I remember sitting in my office, and you've been in my house, man. Sitting in my office, and the first couple of days, like for everybody, flatten the curve. Okay, this is cool. Okay, I'll chill out. That's fine. And then within about 2 weeks, about 15 of my courses got canceled. And I'm a small company. We're big, but we're a boutique. And I started doing the math, and I'm going, okay, 15 courses times whatever we charge for our contract or open courses. And then all of those courses create new courses, and all of those courses create high gear sales. And it suddenly occurred to me within a 24-hour period that I could lose my house, I could lose my business. And I got fucking scared, man. Fortunately, I know this management expert. And, I was like I was literally sitting there, and I describe it as somebody stuck a vacuum cleaner hose up my ass and started to suck my inside out. I was like, oh, fuck. And I'm looking around, and like you said, we pivoted fast, man. Four new websites, started looking at what can we teach. So much of my content, as you know, is about understanding the neuroscience of learning, understanding the neuroscience of how your executive function can get hijacked in a high stress situation, in the connection of the limbic system, how our situational awareness, like everyone said, head on a swivel. Conscious situational awareness is a cognitive function. And when a stimulus is introduced too quickly, if you're surprised, whether you're a citizen or military or law enforcement, when you're surprised, it's because your conscious cognitive situational awareness was compromised for whatever reason. You're looking down at your phone, you're yawning, you're reloading, like shit can happen really quickly. In a nano moment, if your survival system interprets that as you are at risk, it will override executive function. And that's the startle flinch response. A lot of people don't understand that. I just did a post recently about it going, it doesn't matter if you're untrained or if you're trained. You know guys that are badasses who were captured, killed, maimed, or injured in the line of duty or downrange because they were surprised, not because they weren't courageous and not because they weren't skilled. And this is the hardest thing to teach the type A guys that watch these podcasts or go, no, jiu-jitsu is the answer. No, Krav Maga is the answer. No, that's why I carry. That's why I go, that's got nothing to do with it. How good a fucking driver you are has nothing to do with the drunk driver that drives into you.
Yep.
In the moment that you're sitting at the light going, my car is badass, I'm in good shape, I got good situational awareness, but you're at a red light and all of a sudden you fucking look up and there's somebody running a light. It doesn't matter that you got good reflexes or a black belt in driving. You're in a fucking car accident. And so the startle flinch is the equivalent of the body's organic airbag. Anyways, went down a little deep rabbit hole there, but the whole I get a little fired up with this shit. The garage gym was, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and Steve Weatherford, who's, you know, pretty famous dude, you know.
You're a Giants punter.
And we were talking, and I go, dude, like, this is kind of messed up, this whole COVID shit. And he says to me, like, tongue in cheek, he says, aren't you kind of like a famous self-defense guy? And I go, like, sort of, for some people. He says, every day, he says, I've got 150 people that work out with me every day in my garage. He goes, why don't you send a message out and see who wants to work out with you? And so I literally, totally transparent, I said, hey, I could lose my business, everything I've worked for 40 years, everything I've devoted my whole life to. I could lose it because of this. And so what I'm going to start is a group class in my garage. And if you can afford to do it, I know people are struggling now, but if you can afford to do it, on behalf of my team, my family, and myself, I thank you in advance. And I filmed a little thing. I sent it out. We had 100 people sign up right away. That saved my mortgage, my food, my family, everything. I can't thank the people that, you know, now we're almost about 200 people doing it. But here's an amazing thing. And this is wicked serendipity. I said it a little bit earlier. In 1993, I stopped teaching group classes to go focus on training law enforcement, military, and other public safety professionals. And I hadn't taught a group class, man, since 1993. And then last April, I remember saying to Jess before the class, I was like walking around going, oh, fuck, the butterflies in my stomach. She goes, why? I go, fucking, I got anxiety before this. She goes, anxiety to teach on Zoom. Now, I've been teaching online for fucking years. I was teaching on WebEx and Skype before Zoom was even a thing. But it was a captive audience. It was a seminar. It was a 2-hour fear management seminar. It was a thing about spear. It wasn't like 100 people all over the world, different time zones. And I said to her, this isn't a one-off. This is I'm resurrecting a garage gym. And how do you do that? How do you teach self-defense virtually?
Right.
And it was amazing. Today was class 188. 188 in a row classes. We have a separate program for public safety professionals. So over 200 classes taught. And I've got guys, like I've dropped 17 pounds. I've got guys who've dropped 20, 30 pounds. And it's not fitness. We're not doing CrossFit or functional fitness here. It's tactical shit. Multiple assailant drills, ground fighting.
Right.
The stuff that I've come up with as someone who's not passionate but fucking obsessed with your safety, it's crazy some of the drills we've come up with. And so here we are, and I freaking love it. I tell people, we just had a bunch of cops, their course got postponed in the Netherlands, and they said, hey man, we'll wait. They locked down the Netherlands again. And I said, look, man, let's do something online. And they said, no, man, like, no, we don't do Zoom online for this stuff. And I said, why not? And they said, well, because no disrespect, because it sucks. It's boring. I said, if it sucks, it's because your trainer sucked.
Mm-hmm.
I said, do this. I'll give you money back if it doesn't blow your mind. Like what we're doing is it's crazy. So much.
Yeah. Fun. So Tony, can you articulate a little bit as far as what you're doing for the LE guys and kind of your whole training that you're offering them?
As far as the online or just in general?
No, the online stuff.
Yeah. So listen, I'm trying to find a polite way to say this, but I'm not going to be polite. We are training you in the stuff that, for the most part, your agency isn't teaching you. And I liken it to the connective tissue, the fascia between whatever 2 o'clock position, arrest and control, how to draw your weapon, how to sweep a guy, how to throw a shin kick, all the hard skills. And these aren't just the soft skills, but I explain it like this. All fights are dangerous, but the most dangerous fight is an ambush. And so when an ambush happens, I said it earlier, your executive function gets hijacked. So your executive function is this. If I said to you, Rick, what would you do here? Whatever answer you give me is an executive function of theorizing, remembering what you learned, balancing that against what you know is use of force, policy, and continuum. You're going, oh, I want to be moral, I want to be ethical, I want to be legal. And that's our theoretical answer. In a truly high stress situation, we don't have access to that all the time. And all the time is the operative stuff here. And I just posted a dissection of, you saw that Ohio house call where the guy opened fire.
Mm-hmm.
So that went viral and everyone's going, hey, good reflexes, look at that. And I did a whole post explaining how, did anyone notice that her flashlight popped up in front of her head, like she was like underground mining. She was like this, and then her hand popped up out of her head. And neither of her hands went finger splayed outside 90 like we teach. And I explained, listen, every cop needs to understand the cross-extensor reflex, that if you're touching something, if you're holding a ticket, writing a ticket, holding a phone, looking at ID, and the person goes to stab you, punch you, hit you, run, at the moment that you start a flinch, there's a micro flinch, your body will contract around whatever you're touching. This is just pure neuroscience. And you can see it in that shooting. And you can see it like anytime a cop gets dragged by a car, like people are always going, they're always talking about other stuff. And I'm going, like, the body flinches. You're holding onto a car, surrogate area your car. The guy throws it into drive and takes off, and your body flinches. You're not trying to stop the car. No cop thinks he's strong enough to. So I'm going to stop the car, right? Why would you grab a car and hold on to it? You don't have a choice because it's bypassing cognition. So what we teach cops first and foremost is understanding the neuroscience and physiology of the startle flinch, because it'll prevent you for a nanosecond from getting your gun out or from doing wax on, wax off. I'm being funny. I'm trying to make a joke.
Yeah.
You just don't have access to the complex motor skills right away.
Yeah.
And so that's the first layer. But then after that, again, studying this for years, we have principles of how do you use finger splayed outside 90 to penetrate a crowd, to move somebody off, like out of that reactionary gap, so you can threat discriminate properly. If somebody presents their weapon first and you go shit and those hands move, how do you not make the mistake of going to your weapon? If the guy's already got a knife or a gun out and you're inside the reactionary gap, you need to go to this weapon. But that's not what you're taught. So I jokingly say, and I'm a little reticent to say it live here, but I teach the stuff your agency doesn't teach you. And it's right. It's to enhance your survivability at a behavioral level. It's got nothing to do with gender. This is the whole thing about the whole startle flinch isn't gender specific. It's not task specific. It doesn't care if you're corrections or undercover. Or I ask, like I've taught everybody, undercover, right? Corrections, SWAT, law enforcement, court services, everybody. And from tier 1 all the way down to regular military. And everyone is taught, for the most part, the same fundamental stuff. If I ask a SWAT cop, were you taught how to fight in full kit. They look at me and go, I don't mean gun, I mean empty hand. No. Undercover. Who's been undercover? Yeah. When you started going undercover, were you taught how to fight in and out of a car? Were you taught how to fight? And it's like, no, everyone's just taught the same stuff they were taught at the academy. And then you're expected to just figure out shit. And it's the same thing, you know, when someone has an opportunity to train with you, man, and the intellectual capital you have in the shooting area, like they're just taught, most cops are taught how to qualify on the range.
That's it, man.
They're not taught how to gunfight, they're taught how to qualify.
Right.
And that's sorry, one last thing. It's the same thing.
You're good.
When you're taught, okay, you're inside the reactionary gap. Now you've lawfully seized the guy. Move to 2 o'clock. Security. You're taught how to do an armbar to a cooperative role player. But listen, our system's evidence-based. When we do our courses, we use real body cam, helmet cam, CCTV to go, why isn't this operator or this officer doing what they were taught?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is it because they didn't pass the test to get the badge or the flag, or no? Is it because they don't know how to fast rope? Is it because they don't know how to zero weapon? Is it because they're not physically fit? It's on game day, you're not a different tactical athlete. On game day, everything is mindset. And so, but this goes beyond it goes beyond resiliency or combat mindset or adaptive courage or whatever you want to call it. We, as I'm talking about you know, me as a coach, as a trainer, you as a coach, as a trainer, the community doesn't understand enough about the neuroscience of survival and how that interferes with the complex motor skill and the neuromuscular communication to make that happen. And if you look at, again, evidence-based, if you look at a sudden gunfight or you look at a sudden fist fight, you don't see the precision that you see on the line when people are on a flat range qualifying or demoing to pass a test. And that's the big thing. And that's what we were able to figure that out in the 80s and reverse engineered a scenario approach that allows you, if you understand it, it's an algorithm, it's a formula, it's self-correcting, that if you understand our formula, I go, this is neuroscience, and this is what we call the 3 R's: realistic, relevant, rigorous scenario training. And what you do is you put them together, and then you find out in a scenario, you go, oh, fuck, my anaerobic capacity sucks for that sudden fight. Good thing I found out here. Oh, yep. That move that I got really good at, that doesn't work with 2 opponents trying to beat my head or steal my weapon. Anyways, I'll talk forever, but blah, blah, blah.
Go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, Tony, how did this all start? And have you met much resistance after all this time? Are you still getting some resistance to what you're trying to get across?
Mark, if I could monetize my haters, I'd retire.
We'd be billionaires by now.
Yeah, I wouldn't do shows like this. I wouldn't have to.
Oh man,
I'm joking.
Oh, that's good.
No, but we still have. Listen, in the beginning, you know, I'd be there teaching, and in the beginning, there'd always be like one guy in the class sitting there like this.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I'd go, hey, body language is 60% of communication. You got a question? He goes, nope. And it'd be like that famous line in the original Roadhouse, the only official Roadhouse, right? I thought you'd be taller. And I'd have to explain to people, I go, listen, and this became a tagline I used to use for years. I go, don't fucking hate me, hate the bad guy. If there was no bad guys, I'd be out of a job. Rick, you'd be out of a job. Mark, you wouldn't have podcasts.
Right.
So we would find other things. You and I we'd be fucking yoga instructors or something, right? And we'd be like, fuck, there's no violence. What we do. And it's not that I'm glorifying it. And there's something people don't know about me. I abhor violence. I fucking hate it. And I got lots of buddies and friends who come from your background, Rick, who have sent me stuff over the years. Hey, check this out. And I've never looked at 99% of the stuff that people send me, I know it's going to be a horrifically graphic picture of somebody who didn't know what to do. And and a lot of the guys that send it to me, I never said to them, don't send me that shit. Don't know, because I know they wouldn't understand. I don't need to see someone being beheaded who made every fucking mistake that got them caught and then didn't fight to the death before they got, a hood put on them or thrown in the trunk of a car. Right? Never get taken to a secondary crime scene. That's never statistically ending very well for you. I don't need to look at that. And so because I abhor violence so much, I've spent my life studying it and sharing whatever insights I can. And I always come in and go, look, I'm just trying to enhance your survivability. If I can make you, if you're already tier 1 and I can share one idea on neuroscience, on startle flinch conversion, and I happen to, because I study outside the box, like I'm not part of the system, I will look at certain things and go, why aren't you guys doing it like this? And I had some people, and it was interesting, before 9/11, and you know where I was on 9/11. I talked about it with Pat. Like me, like so many of the guys I know from your old work and down that way, I knew from before 9/11 and on the 9/11, and still friends with guys to this day. But here's the thing. I would sit on a catwalk or look at stuff. I go, why are you doing that? And people would say to me, dude, stay in your lane. You're from Canada. You're lucky we're bringing you down here. But I'd be going, I always looked at things as a lone operator. What would I do? I built my whole company and system around the 3 I's: instincts, intuition, and intelligence. And every one of you listening to this call, and both of you here, you've all said multiple times in your life going, fuck, I knew that was going to happen. And that's got a negative connotation. And I tease people, I go, how many times do you think you've said, are you fucking kidding me? I knew that was going to fucking happen, with that type of emotion. If you said that, the question is, if you knew it was going to happen, then why didn't you change what happened? Why did you let it happen? Because cognitive dissonance is a real thing. Ego's a real thing, right? We go, our intuition, I tell people, our intuition whispers in our ear, and then our ego, our arrogance, cognitive dissonance, or whatever you want to call it, goes, we got this, we're okay. And this is what I try to remind people. I go, listen, you don't want to explore neuroscience? Oh, Tony Blauer, I thought you'd be taller. Tony Blauer, I'd never seen you in the office. Have you ever arrested anybody? Have you ever been? I remember cops saying to me, I go, guys, we're gonna do this drill. Wait, so you got a question? No. Yeah, like I would say things in the beginning. Look, my bedside manner has improved over the years. Dude, I'm turning 61 in fucking May. That blows my fucking mind.
Looking good, buddy.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Right. I told you this before, Rick. I'm married, and stop hitting on me. He hits something all the time.
Hey, can't help it.
Listen, it kind of freaks me out, but I can remember back in the day saying to guys when I came up with the line, "Don't hate me, hate the bad guy," because people would be like going, "What do you know? What do you know?" And I go, "Listen." And I remember saying to one guy, he was from Massachusetts SWAT. I was teaching at the legendary Smith and Wesson Academy, and I said to him, I said, "Listen, you're here with those 3 guys, right? And they're big fucking dudes." And he's like going, "You're from Canada. You're not even a cop." Because I said, "There's no such thing as reactionary gap, guys. Whoever came up with the reactionary gap should have his hands slapped." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I go, "Well, the Tueller drill, the true Tueller principle says you need 21 feet to recognize a threat, fucking go shit, lethal weapon, step off line, draw your weapon, and engage the guy. 21 feet. Now, that number is not real because in the original assessment, that wasn't the fastest knife attacker against the fastest shooter. That would change if you're a good shooter versus a slower attacker. That would change if you were a bad shooter versus a faster knife-wielding attacker. And this I love to tell people, and I'm assuming you got a lot of cops listening to this. So I want to debunk Tueller and the 21-foot rule for a second. It's not a rule. Everyone should know that by now. It's an observation. But when that test was done, it was done in an empty parking lot with a guy with a training knife and a guy with a training gun. Training knife, training gun. Imagine if you had the training knife and I said to everybody, guys, let's try this with a real gun. What would the guy who had the fake knife say? Would he go, hold on a sec, run that by me again? He's got a real gun with real ammo. He's going to try and shoot me, and I got a fake knife. And what would happen if we flipped it? We said, hey, training weapon, real blade, really fucking impale him with that knife. The guy with the training gun would go, whoa, I thought we were doing like an assessment here. So also, would that change if we were in confined spaces and 21 feet away? And I would ask guys, and I did this in 1995 at an ASLEC conference in front of 400 police trainers. And I said, the reactionary gap does not exist. That was my lecture. And here's how we know. What's the reactionary gap? It's approximately, 4 to 6 feet, where it's the distance between you and the subject. And it's the reactionary gap, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, cool. Stop that, hold that, pin that thought. Tueller. Who could explain the Tueller drill or the Tueller principle? And they'd all explain it. I go, so you need 21 feet to draw your weapon, get offline against average shooter versus average runner. And in that drill, that doesn't take into account the psychological delay that the brain has to do while it's gathering intelligence, right? So if you walk into a scenario and I go, hey, is there a problem here? And the guy all of a sudden goes, and comes running at you like this. That's going to be a different reaction time than if you're filming a caliber press video at night in an empty parking lot with a camera crew. Guys, we're going to do this, right? And so I always tell people, consent creates awareness. Consented awareness creates preparedness. That preparedness improves your reaction time. Guys, there's going to be an ambush exactly at this time, exactly at this location. Let's get there early.
Not an ambush.
Psychological, but you're like, here we go, boom. But if you don't know, so one of our maxims, I don't remember what I said already, all fights are dangerous, but the most dangerous fight is the ambush. Mm-hmm. So we get all that. So I have 400 trainers, and hopefully everyone listening to this right now is tracking this. I go, so do you understand that 21 feet, you actually need longer distance if you don't know what's happening? If you walk into, you see somebody, trying to break into a car and you're 21 feet away and you go with your flashlight and your gun, sir, is that your vehicle? And he goes, yeah, officer, I locked my keys in here. And he comes running at you. Your reaction time is going to be different than if I say, Rick, are you ready?
Yeah.
Good. Your SIM gun good, your eye protection on, cameras, right? So everyone's like, oh, wow, never thought about it like that. I said, so really, if we add a buffer for surprise, maybe it needs to be 31 feet. Mm-hmm. Holy fuck. Has anyone here ever arrested anybody in a 31-foot empty room? No. You ever been in a parking lot where cars are 31 feet apart? No. That's a problem. Okay, now let's go back to reactionary gap. If you need 21 feet to stop a guy with a knife, what distance do you need to stop a guy without a knife? And everyone looked at me. And I said, if I come running at you and I can stick a knife in your throat, slash your face, slash your neck with the knife, and let's say the distance is 21 feet universal. Doesn't matter if you're old cop, doesn't matter if you're young, you're in shape, doesn't matter. It's like gravity. It's always 21 feet. Let's say it is. What's the distance I need to get my gun out and shoot you if I don't have a knife? Rick and Mark, everyone looked at me like, what? I go, the distance is 21 feet less the length of the knife in the fucking demo. Why? If I can slash you across the face at 21 feet, I'm going to move over here so the camera, whoops, I got to move this way. It's always opposite, right? If I can slash you with the knife over here, can't I punch you in the throat with that same arc?
Oh, yeah.
The same trajectory of me stabbing you like this is the same trajectory of a punch. The same kinetic chain of me slashing you across the throat is the same trajectory of me whipping a hook punch. It's the same movement. This is a Hicks law compliant principle. Again, more science to support the spear. The more choices we have, the slower reaction time, algorithmically. You got two choices, it doubles it. And anyways, all of that to conclude this whole thing, and hopefully this is a big light bulb moment for some of your listeners, is if I can punch you in the face from 21 feet, less the length of the knife, stun you, and then steal your gun and shoot you, then who came up with the reactionary gap 6 to 8 feet? Like if I can, you guys see that? Now I can charge you from 21 feet and hit you with a knife. Who said 6 to 8 feet is safe?
Yeah.
I thought. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Tony, I thought, and again, I didn't see the original Tueller tape, but I was always under the impression that the Tueller drill wasn't necessarily for the reaction gap. It was to drive the point that your average person could cover 21 feet in about 1.5 seconds.
Right.
And I thought the premise was, the point he was trying to get across was not so much the reactionary gap, but more the draw speed of, hey, and of course he didn't account for, starter flinch and everything else going on, but just, hey, a guy can cover 21 feet in about 1.5 seconds. You better be able to pull out your pistol quicker than that. And then, oh, by the way, you're not really going to get to full extension because you figure by the time you're losing space somewhere. Right. So that's it. I didn't realize they were trying to sell the reactionary gap on that.
No. So in all fairness to Dennis Tueller, he wasn't saying it. It morphed over the years into the Tueller drill, and then 21 feet rule, and it became this. It was actually called the 21 foot rule. And if people actually left it as a motivated attacker can cover 21 feet in a second and a half. Mm-hmm. The problem with it, if we could do it again, and a bunch of us got around, we would probably articulate the observation very differently.
Sure.
But so what happens is every single cop will go like this and go, okay, I'm about 21 feet. I'm pretty safe from here. And then they'll walk up to a suspect who has no weapons, and they'll go, "Sir, let me see your hands." And I ask cops, so this is the point I'm trying to make, is that there's an assumption that you're safe at 6 to 8 feet if the guy doesn't have a weapon in his hand. People will know, okay, he's got a knife, I got to stop here. He's got a gun, I got to stop here. I got to engage the guy. It's just morphed into a whole bunch of weird things for a lot of people, and I've been since 1995 trying to help people look at it differently. I loved how you explained it. You as a firearms subject matter expert, motivator in that area, what you said is hey, you better be able to get your weapon out, because this can happen really fast, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about that. I always look at, and I'll go back to the whole startle flinch and I wasn't, just in case anyone, we got selective listeners all over the world. I was never criticizing Tueller. I was criticizing many, many trainers and agencies, departments, and organizations that took that, and it was
right
shared out of context, that people thought they were safe here. And listen, I try to be provocative, because you can realize something or you can have a realization. A realization is more profound. I try to invoke and inspire realizations. I want to say shit that's so provocative that you finish this podcast and go, I might just fucking hate this guy Blauer. Did he say there's no such thing as a reactionary gap? Because I want you to do your homework and research, because that is going to lead you to enhancing your survivability. Instead of just memorizing something, you're like, okay, what is this? I gotta evaluate. I gotta test this. I gotta train.
Right.
But that's the key point, Tony. Right? And I mean, Mark will tell you, we just got done doing, an LE course up in Ohio, and you try to drive to these guys. Hey, man, you've got to take some personal responsibility for your own personal protection. All right. So I harpen these guys. Make sure you physically check that there's a round in the chamber. Yes, we dub it the Warhog check, a little marketing in there, throw that stuff in there, but you're trying to drive a point home. You still had guys that carry a gun for a living that wanted to buck this thing. And I'm just baffled going, dude, it is the cheapest life insurance policy you can buy.
Right.
Make sure there's at least a round in the chamber. At least I got one. The mag might fall out, some other drama, who knows? But at least I've got one, and that might be the difference between you getting, like you said, slashed in the throat or walking away and going home that night. So
yeah,
it's definitely interesting you shouldn't have to force people to build their own survivability. It's like you shouldn't have to sit there and go, hey guys, you're training your hands. I got it. We're at a firearms course. You throw that in there. Are you carrying a blade? I mean, what tools do you have to your ability? Because at the end of the day, violence is there. Violence is real. And I want to sit there and squelch that violence as quick as I can, as effective and efficiently as I can, and be done with it. And then it's all good to go.
Yeah.
But it's mind boggling, man. I can't get it.
Yeah. I mean, you know this, I don't want to rant on cops, but first thing in the morning, we always used to make the joke, anyone got any questions? Is what time are we breaking today? Like that was your first question is like, what time are we breaking? I love police. My whole business is built around, I give free training to cops. But I have the same thing. I'm going like, man, like the difference between an asocial and antisocial predator in terms of moving, like mind speed to just move, and the police officer that's juggling a use of force continuum, and that gap time. I would always tell people that in the moment of sudden violence, the bad guy will always move faster than the good guy, because the bad guy doesn't give a shit about his backdrop. He doesn't care if there's missed rounds. He doesn't care if there's innocents around. He's not thinking about how am I going to justify this. He's not juggling anything. He's just a fucking predator.
Right.
And I try to explain that. And here's a really good quote. I started sharing this in the 90s. I first said it at talking at an ITOA conference, Illinois Tactical Officers. I said, are you training for your next fight, or are you training for your last fight? You training for your next fight, or you training for your last fight? And most people are always training for their last fight. If they win their last fight, you unconsciously are thinking about your last fight, believe it or not, because people are saying that was a nice job, nice job, nice job. If you're in the gym punching, if you're at the range shooting, it's human nature to think about your last. You go have a really good meal at a restaurant and you go, man, that was fantastic, we got to come back here, and then a month later you go back there. As you're going in, there's no way your brain isn't going, I wonder if we're going to have the same waiter, I wonder if the meal's going to be as good, I wonder if the service is going to be as good. Your brain is, the anticipatory cells in your brain are always trying to guess the future, and this neuroscience needs to be built into the training. But it starts with what you were saying, Rick, is, use the word responsibility. I use that too. And I love putting a hyphen between the word response and ability, meaning what is your ability to respond? And the goal isn't to hide behind or just assume, I always make a joke. I go, hey, the only person who is methodical and thinking about breathing and technique and dialed in a violent encounter is the sniper, because he's like nowhere near the violence. Everyone else, things are going a little bit, if it's a gunfight with resistance, things are a little bit crazier than the person who's like on the roof, a couple hundred yards away. And so I'd make that joke, but my joke on there, because I've worked and trained with snipers, and I go, look, if that's the only thing that you ever have to do, I go, but imagine this. And I remember doing this at one of the organizations I worked with, just to drive the point home. I went, okay, sniper over here, get on the ground, simulate you're on the ground here, and you're you're waiting for some sort of commands and from your partner. And then all of a sudden I'd walk up to the guy and I go, psst, psst, and the guy like looks up and I go, if you're looking for me, I'm right behind you. Meaning I'm the guy he's supposed to and now what are you going to do? And, but there's always somebody in the class, and I'm trying to, again, be magical. I'm trying to inspire. There was at one of the gigs I was doing down at Bragg, the summer before, a Navy SEAL lost his life he was stabbed to death outside of Hot Tuna.
Damn.
Right? And everyone in the community knew about it. And so I brought up some knife principles and knife defense. And there were a couple of guys there that are like, what's this got to do with our mission? I go, look, the military spends $1 million to get you up here, and you don't even know how to diffuse a confrontation outside of a bar. Yeah. I go, when is the last time a 12-man element was fucking mugged? Okay, guys, let's go. Right. And someone walks up, there's 12 of you guys there getting ready to all stack, ready to go. And someone goes, give me your fucking watches right now.
Oh, man.
Right. Like, when is the last time a 4-man SWAT team, a 6 or 8 man, a 12-man element was raped, mugged, kidnapped, strong arm? It doesn't happen. And so what I was trying to say is like responsibility, your ability to respond. And I would tell guys, again, just getting them to think. Negotiator stance, de-escalation, our whole Trojan horse metaphor, how to talk people down, and then how to strike with an open hand, and connecting that to the start of flinch. The hand is always open if it's not indexing something. And so we always talk about finger splayed outside 90. That's your organic airbag. The body pushes away danger just in the same way an airbag is trying to create space between you, between impact with your steering wheel or with the part of the vehicle and you. The body's start of flinch does the same thing. It is trying to create a buffer between you and the threat. And there was always people in the class that are going, man, I'm just going to fucking hit the guy. I go, if you in a high stress situation get angry, which hand are you going to punch with? And you're always going to punch with your dominant hand when you get upset. And I go like, what is the most bruised, broken part of any fighter's anatomy? I don't care if it's cop, military, MMA fighter, boxer, it's your hand. Mm-hmm. So your job is to be able to, as in this case, the conversation with some military guys, is to have your shooting hand on a gun. So imagine you get in a fight one night and you hit a guy and you fucking break your hand, and now you can't deploy, you can't do your job. So it's the same thing. Like I would tell guys, and again, I'm trying to get in their head, be provocative. Pretend you're a concert pianist. You need to protect your hands. That's the reason you should learn the spear system and nonviolent postures, because it's congruent with physiology that when you flinch, your hands are open. That from there you convert the flinch, slam that palm, pushes away the danger, and now you can transition to shit. But your hands aren't damaged. So you can go to your OC or your baton or your gun or whatever you got to do, or fight. I don't know if you've ever had to fight, or, I've cracked my knuckles and injured my wrist in the past. Mm-hmm. You're fucked for like 2-3 months. And So it's just crazy when you have those guys. This is like a long rant, man, on your experience in Ohio. Like, incorporate these little things here. It's just going to enhance your survivability. Why don't you do it? But there's always people who are arguing to be right about being wrong, which is weird.
Yeah. Well, how did you get to the point where you started the spear system? I mean, where did your martial arts training begin, and how did it evolve? Because at a relatively young age, I might say, because you've been doing this a while, how did it all start?
Yeah, cool question. It was funny because I just posted an article, a little blog post on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, where I found some pictures of me in 1986 filming some videos up the street. Ironically, I was living in Canada, but I was in San Clemente filming the panic attack videos for Panther Production. And the panic attack videos were it was a concept I came up with in 1980 after one of my students lost a fight. Before that, I was fanatic for Taekwondo, for boxing, anything Bruce Lee. So I was like everyone, teenager, eclectic martial artist, like trying to be, the next Bruce Lee type thing. And one of my dad's closest friends, his son, his 15-year-old son, Mitch, was having some bully problems in school, and he knew that I was into martial arts. So he seeks me out and he says, I need you to train Mitch. It's 1980. I'd already started teaching already, but it's 1980. And I'm making literally $4.25 an hour as a shipper at my dad's factory. I was sweeping the back, unpacking clothes. And this guy, Joey, says, I want you to train my son. I said, okay, cool. I'll do it, Joey, you're a friend of the family's. He goes, how much do you charge? I said, I'm not charging you, a friend of the family's. I'd known this guy my whole life. He goes, no, I want you to keep this serious. It's not a favor. I want you to train my son. He's being bullied in school. I want you to prepare the class. And this really was the kickstart of my business. Even though I had been teaching since 1977, it was more, I was training a couple of friends so that I had somebody to spar with, because I lived up in the country with my dad at the time, and there was nobody around. It was a real rural area. And so Joey says to me, I'm making $4 an hour, $4.25. Joey says, I'll pay you $20. So I'm good at math. I think, okay, that's 5 classes. Okay, cool. And he goes, I'll pay you $20 an hour. So I do the math. I go, sure, okay. And he says, so every week you prepare the class and I'll pay you $20. And I realize, holy shit, he's going to pay me $20 an hour? And I'm like, oh my God. I literally remember saying to myself, I'm rich. I haven't even done class yet. That's what a fucking goofball it was. But here's what happened. I started training Mitch, and he 3 months later, he gets into the fight with this bully. And Mitch is running for class. He's 15 years old. This other kid's 15 years old. The kid throws out his leg and trips him. And Mitch goes flying in front of a bunch of kids, drops all his books, falls, face plants on the floor. And this was the first time the guy had actually put his hand on Mitch. Until then, it was just verbal abuse. And I talked to Mitchell about this, saying, hey, no retroactive violence. Your dad is paying me to teach you self-defense. School's not doing anything about it. Just avoid this guy. But if he puts his hand on you, Mitch, you may have to defend yourself. Okay, blah, blah, blah. This is the first time. So Mitchell picks up his books and he's going, you fucking asshole. And he's embarrassed and all the kids are laughing. And when Mitch says, you fucking asshole, this guy walks up to him and he's like, what'd you fucking say? And he pokes him again. And Mitchell loses it and he grabs the guy and he slams him against a locker bank and he goes, what's your fucking problem, man? He says, you've been bugging me since school started. I don't even fucking know what your problem is. I got to back up for a second, because how I find out about this is I come for Mitchell's weekly private lesson and he's sitting in his room like this. Like fucking fury, like smoke coming, like a cartoon, smoke coming out of his ears. And I go, what happened? And he takes me right to the point I took all of you here. And I go, and I grabbed him. And then he stops talking. He goes, and I grabbed him, I slammed him against the locker bank. And I said, leave me the fuck alone. I don't even know who you are. Like, what are you even bugging me so much for? And I go, and he goes like this, guys. He goes, he sucker punched me and dropped me. I'm like, dude, why didn't you slip? Why didn't you check it? Why didn't you parry it? All the shit that we worked on. And he looks at me. It's 1980. There's no spear system. There's no high gear. He goes, well, I was holding him like this. And then he says, I had my school books. I'm looking for like something, it's like I had shit in my hands here. Well, years later now, I can elegantly explain that if you're touching something and somebody attacks you and you flinch, if you're touching something, you will lock down around that. There'll be a micro contraction around whatever you're touching. There's a video, I'll send you the link of it. This guy, Brian Dalton, an officer, also Ohio, who got stabbed 4 times in the neck.
Mm-hmm.
But Ohio's a fucking badass place. He gets stabbed in the neck, screwdriver in the neck. And in in the video that you see, there's a dash cam, not dash cam, his body cam. When the guy grabs the screwdriver and jumps out of the 18-wheeler, you see the officer fucking his hand come up, just like I teach, and hit the guy in the sternum, just like I talk about airbag. It was so much the spear that we train a lot of guys in Ohio. I said, has this guy been to our class? Because he did the drill that we teach, center mass, sternum pec clavicle, this linear and lateral duck under drill. And you see him do that, and you actually see in slow motion the ticket he was holding float down before the guy transitions to the gun and shoots the guy. And you can do it's perfect. It turns out that we hadn't taught him, which was even more evidence that every single cop should look into this, because there's a big difference in figuring it out yourself during a death match and being exposed to it in advance during scenario training. Your reaction time is going to be different.
Yeah.
Anyway, fast forward, backtrack. The reason Mitchell got dropped is because one hand was locked up on the guy's shirt, one hand was locked up on his books, and when the guy threw the left hook and he flinched, he tightened up, boom, gets hit, gets dropped. In that moment, guys, I'm 20 years old. I say to Mitchell, when he explains it, I always describe this as the god of self-defense hit me with a lightning bolt. And I went, oh my God, we teach self-defense wrong. Holy fuck. And when I said that, I meant that collectively, that we teach most, if not all, self-defense instructors teach how to get out of a headlock, how to stop a tackle, how to do a gun disarm, what to do if the guy's got a knife. All of these scenarios start with the attack in play. And that's just not how neuroscience works. And I didn't understand the neuroscience then, but I understood something was wrong. Remember my 3 I's: instincts, intuition, and intelligence. I immediately looked at Mitchell and I said, are those your books there? He goes, yeah. I said, grab them, grab me, show me what happened. And for the next 45 minutes, I played with all these angles. And here's what I didn't do. I didn't do what a lot of other people might have done, which was, hey, why'd you compromise your hands? You shouldn't have had anything in your hands. He's a 15-year-old kid in school. What do you mean don't have your, hey, like that officer shouldn't have his flashlight and in his head. Bullshit. Cops are going to hold flashlights and look at ID. The Ohio shooting from this week, flashlight indexing the gun, micro flinch, screaming, and then transition. Your brain has to recalibrate. Here's the thing, and again, I'm jumping ahead here, but for decades, I've been telling people the bad guy controls the fight. And a lot of good guys don't like to hear that. I go, the bad guy controls the fight. And the moment you accept that, you become safer. It doesn't mean the bad guy wins the fight. It just means he controls everything that you need to figure out to beat him. That house that they went to, they didn't call the bad guy out and go, hey, we'd like to arrest you at this house. Could you change location? The bad guy controlled the location. The bad guy controlled the level of violence. The bad guy controlled the duration of the fight. And when you understand that, that's almost like this, it almost relieves you of this idea that you got to control everything. I'm going to move into this and I'm going to take my training and then I'm going to observe the battlefield and I'm going to fucking adapt from there, right? It's a very fascinating concept. And again, opens another rabbit hole for discussion. But in that moment, and I go back to Mark's question, I'm actually gonna talk for 43 years straight. So this podcast, we're starting in 1980. I'm gonna tell you every story that led to this podcast. But in all seriousness, guys, in that moment in 1980 when that happened, I started doing scenario training every fucking class, and the language that became my system and my approach to managing violence was the bad guy controls the fight. And we should never tell our students, never compromise your hands or don't stand like this or do that. Because guess what? In life, you're always going to be in a shitty position unless you're the sniper, right? It's never ideal. And it's like, what's the oldest maxim for you guys is like, first contact, no plan survives first contact, right? You've got to be able to adapt and move from there. But that started off this cascading effect that approached the scenario-based training in 1980, predated RBSD, reality-based self-defense training, which is an acronym I hate because I go, what other type of self-defense training is there?
Yeah.
Why you need to say reality-based self-defense? Like, is there
Yeah.
unreality-based self-defense training? I don't get that. So it's self-defense. But
Right.
then the focus was, what we didn't realize is in our pursuit of the black belt and martial arts, we didn't realize this, that if I practice, and I would tell people, and you guys appreciate this, I would ask people, how many of you practice weapon retention drills? And everyone goes, we do. And how does a weapon retention drill start? And you go, well, bad guy grabs my gun, I pin the hand, I solve the problem, and then I go from there. And I go, okay, so first of all, weapon retention is your fucking holster. Weapon protection is your mindset. So I immediately, back over 30 years ago, anyone who said, do you teach weapon retention? I'd say, let me buy you a holster. And they go, I have a holster. And you don't need retention, you need protection. Somebody's trying to grab your gun, doesn't give a fuck that you're in the military or in law enforcement. You need protection, and you need to protect yourself right now. Shit's happening really fast. You don't have time to dial 911. You are fucking 911. Okay. So I started saying to people like, hey, you're the first responder in your fight, even if you're the first responder, right? The old great maxim, in your fight, your point, and moving from there. So, but years before the whole, you guys have heard what Malcolm Gladwell made famous, the 10,000 tipping point, 10,000 hours, based on the original research from, I believe it's the researcher Erickson from Europe. But, and now there's people saying 10,000 hours isn't blah, blah, blah. I go, listen, if you do something for 10,000 hours or 10,000 reps, you're going to get really good at it. But here's the thing. If your whole career of weapon retention was doing drills where, you stood there with a gun, and then you had a role player grab your gun, and then you pinned his hands, then you hit the radial nerve or chopped his neck, or did some sort of, jiu-jitsu, aikido type armbar, and you did that over and over again, guess what? And let's say it was 10 reps or 100 reps or 1,000 reps or 10,000 reps. It doesn't fucking matter. Every time you do a drill, and this is the whole point of this, every time you do a drill where you are practicing the counter, you are also practicing letting somebody attack you. Let me say that again and think about this. Every time you do a drill where you're practicing the counter to a move, how do you get out of a headlock? How do you do a gun disarm? How do you evade this knife slash? What you're doing is you're also practicing letting somebody attack you. And this might seem stupid and people might go, oh, this guy's lost his mind. I do this in every class I teach. Picture this. Who here knows how to do defense against the headlock? Everyone puts up their hand, and then I'll go like this. I'm going to go over to Bob to demo this. Here's Bob. He's in the class. I'm in the class. I go, okay, you two guys, demo from your agency or department, defense against a headlock. And then I just stand there like this, and I go ahead. Let me see what you're doing. And one guy will go like this, guys. And you probably learned the exact same way. One guy will go like this. Do you want to attack me or do you want me to attack you? And the guy goes, oh, I'll attack you. And then the other guy will go like this. The guy's going to demo the headlock defense, goes like this. And then the other fucker puts his arm around it. Then he does or someone goes, gun disarm. Okay, stick a gun on my face. Guy does the gun disarm, and then he does his move. You got to understand what's going on here. Dissonance, a fancy word for I got a bad feeling. Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before the attack. You've been on calls and missions where you're about to open a door and then you go, something's wrong here. And then it turns out there's a booby trap or there was somebody inside, and that's happened more than once. So it's not a weird superstition. But I tell people, and this ties into our choose safety model. And choose safety is not to be confused with playing it safe. Choosing safety, the safest thing may be to run away. The safest thing may be to charge the threat. You got to figure that out. But if your brain, and this is all about neuroscience, guys, we have a maxim that goes, be careful what you practice, you might get really good at the wrong thing. Be careful what you practice, you might get really good at the wrong thing. If the neurons, right, the neurons that fire together wire together, as a famous neuroscientist said that back decades ago. There's no such thing as actual muscle memory. If you're in a gunfight and your gun jams and you go and you fucking clear the malfunction and you get back in the gunfight, and then you go, holy shit, I don't remember doing that, and someone goes, that's muscle memory, good training. It's not really muscle memory. It's neuromuscular communication. You had situational awareness and you had the proper myelinization of the neuron. It's all fucking neuroscience. If you cut a muscle open, there's no muscles. And the joke I make is this. I go, if you're waiting for me to kill me and I come in the room really quickly and I cut your arm off and your arm falls down and the gun is still in your hand, will your arm shoot me? If it's cut off from you. And people go, you're fucking weird, Blauer. But no, I go, then there's no muscle memory. What I mean is your arm needs to be attached to your brain for you to go bang, bang, bang. No such thing as literal muscle memory. And I say that respectfully because everybody, and probably maybe even you guys go muscle memory. For the longest time, I would say that. And then as I dug deeper in it, it was if I have no awareness and I have skill, I'm still going to get fucked up. And if I have skill and I have no awareness, I'm still going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
I need to have awareness and I need to have skill.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Like, what's the difference between getting out of a headlock, wrestling with your buddy, in a grappling competition, or in a cave in Afghanistan? Well, the difference for getting out of a headlock is exactly the same. It's a headlock around your head. You got to break the grip. You got to get out of it. The difference emotionally and psychologically is huge. One is I'm wrestling and I don't really care what happens. One is I might lose a tournament. One is if I don't get out of this, I'm probably dead.
Yep.
The emotional psychological duress in scenario 3 changes a lot of stuff. Also, when you start thinking about it, and so we would break this down in our scenario training system, we'd say there's a attack specific training, how to get out of a headlock. And then there's scenario specific training. The scenario changed, like if I got somebody got me in a headlock, my move from the headlock might be, oh fuck, to pull my pistol out and shoot them in the fucking foot right away. Not to wrestle around here or to take the guy down. It might be to get my knife out and cut the femoral artery or femoral or tomato, where it depends where you're from, right?
All good.
But the idea here is you can't bring a knife into the octagon or a gun, right? So it's understanding, separating in your brain. And when you start thinking like that, you start thinking about scenarios. Scenario training creates brain-based training. Brain-based training makes you visualize. And then suddenly you're sitting in a class going, but this could happen. What about this? What about this? And now you're enhancing your survivability. And that's the secret to it, is asking the question, what is the scenario?
Yeah.
And that's one thing you're big on, Tony, because I know students always come up to you and go, hey, what would you do if a guy did X?
Right.
And Tony's like, paint me a better picture. What's the scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's
the missing
invaluable worlds, man.
Mark, I never answered your question. It'll take too long to answer, but I'm notorious for my rants. That whole thing started the whole scenario training thing. 13 years later, I developed the first prototype for high gear. As a result of over a decade, we created what was, before Fight Club was a movie, we would do that. Every month we get together and beat the shit out of each other and videotape it, like on VHS. Most of your listeners don't even know what VHS is. You guys remember VHS.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Back in the 80s, we're videotaping shit and we're wearing, like hockey gauntlets and helmets and cages, taekwondo chest guards, baseball shin guards. We would dress up like Frankenstein and beat the shit out of each other. But we would do scenarios. We didn't touch gloves, and it would be Rick go stand over there, Mark and I walk up to you, and it'd be like, hey, dude, boss wants his money. And you couldn't get into a stance. We would tell people, like, as soon as we said something to you, you had to adopt the role that we had given you. It was like improv meets Fight Club. right? And it was like, so if I said, hey, Rick, boss wants his money, you'd immediately in a nanosecond go, okay, these guys are loan sharks. I'm obviously not going to punch them in the face because they're going to come back and kill me. And now you have to do a scenario. Hey man, I need a couple more days. And then there'd be a shakedown, maybe we would do like weird scenarios. You'd suddenly be in a situation where you're being dragged to a secondary crime scene or surrounded by 3 guys, or hey, give us your money, a mugging. And we would give people these loose scenarios, and they always, there was always a moral, ethical, legal objective to try and talk your way out of it. And then we always gave people an escape route, and that if they could break contact. So check this out. We would say, this guy's still a friend of mine. His name's Larry. It was 1987. And I say, okay, guys, the fight's going to happen over here where the Bobs are. And if you can break contact and get over to here to the front of the garage, that's safe haven. And Larry puts his hand up and he goes, hey, with all due respect, Mr. Blauer, we all know how to run. We came here to learn how to fight. And I said, Larry, the fact that you have a problem running means you probably won't. And it means your ego might get you fucking killed. This is a true self-defense course. I'm not trying to teach you to express my martial art. My objective is get you the fuck to safety. And so that became a big part of it. And here's probably the most important thing. So in the 80s was kind of my incubator period. In the 80s, I created the No Fear program, spelled KNOW. How do you manage fear? How do you change your relationship with fear? How do you I realized this watching hundreds of people go through scenarios. People who I thought would do really well totally fucking lost their shit. And you'd find out like the one story I always tell is like this guy who was a bouncer at a bar did really poorly. Well, his whole experience with violence was fighting drunk people and starting the fight. I don't mean like as a bully, but as a not as a bodyguard, as a bouncer, you're going, that guy's going to be a problem. I can tell now. And then you tell your partner, hey, watch the door. I'm going to go grab this guy. And it was like a team tactic thing. And then you go, guys, you got to leave. But you're all ready to sucker punch the guy or take him down or hit him or tase him or whatever the fuck you're going to do, right? Because you've been watching him. Remember I said earlier, awareness, preparedness, and consent. Those factors. A lot of people don't realize when you agree to a fight, you create consent. Consent creates preparedness and awareness. Suddenly, whether you win or lose, those are major factors in confrontation management. And but they don't those qualities don't exist in any ambush. Nobody consents to an ambush. Therefore, nobody's prepared for an ambush. Even if you say, I've done my counter ambush training. I ask people like for immediate action drills. They go, oh, have you been in ambush? Yeah, what'd you do? Immediate action. What'd you do before the immediate action? You still need to recalibrate. Everyone still flinches in an ambush. Hands come up. I know so many guys that have fucking knife wounds and bullet marks on their hands from fucking coming up with an M4 in their hand or empty hand, because the hands do what they're going to do. It's physiology, man. So anyways, I forget what the fuck I was talking about. I'm all over the place.
No, you covered it.
No,
but all of that, what I noticed in the 80s was the people who managed their fear managed to fight. The people who managed their fear managed to fight. And what that means, it doesn't guarantee that they were victorious, but it meant that they were in the fight. They agreed to fight. And that statistically impacts the level of PTSD or any type of emotional issue. If you I'm going to fight. I might lose, but I'm going to fight. So it starts with that turned into our psychobehavior and no fear program. All of the scenario training turned into our scenario program, our ballistic microfight. All of that experience made me design the high gear suit, our high gear suit was what Simunitions and UTM and all the other marking cartridge became for force on force. High gear allowed people to now finally pressure test empty hand shit.
Right.
And so it's interesting. Those three verticals that are now what make up my company happened in the 80s doing those scenarios. It was pretty interesting period. And what I was getting at, I just posted something where I found these pictures where I was, it was pre this sucker punch drill. And I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link to it. It's pretty interesting, where I'm starting to develop the inaugural drills to what started the spear system. Because you asked me, Mark, like about 2 days ago, how did the spear system start? But the spear system started where I started trying to figure out how close is too close. And I didn't, like everyone says, okay, let's go, right? We get into a fighting stance and then we test ourselves. I wanted to do shit where I'd be here like this at a bar talking to you and then have you throw a shot at me like this and see what would happen. But when I initially started to do it, I was trying to see, am I fast enough to do a bong sao from Wing Chun? Am I fast enough to parry from boxing? Am I fast enough to, cover my head? And I just wanted to see how close was too close. And while I was doing this exercise, and I called it the sucker punch drill, because my partner would wear 16-ounce gloves and I would just wear a mouth guard. And I started to notice that this crazy shit would start to happen. That when I would try to do some sort of wax off move, 50% of the time I got punched right in the face. Whenever my body went, fuck, that was close, and I truly flinched, it deflected the shot. It would hit my shoulder, my forearm, my tricep. It'd be like, whoa, that was close. Whoa, that was close. And I was watching the video after, and I had a mouse under both eyes. My lips were swollen. I was bleeding. I had a headache. And I'm sitting at my desk with an ice pack. And I'm going, and this is 1987-ish. And I was like, I knew something special had happened during that. I didn't know what it was. And that became like the like an archaeologist. I had to go digging for what is this. And then I discovered startle flinch. And then I realized with proper training, you could weaponize the startle flinch. And then that became the organic airbag, and connecting it to how do I prime it? And that became, this is a nonviolent posture. This is a nonviolent posture. This is a nonviolent posture. And all these stances that when I'm in them, we have all these proprietary drills where we work back from the startle flinch back into a nonviolent posture. So if I'm a cop, and I remember one of the guys I trained military, there was an altercation right outside the compound, and people are like standing there, like indexing their weapons, and they're like, get back, get back, get back. And one of the guys that I trained, he goes out there, and he's got his hand on his gun, and he's just talking like, hey man, I need you to understand. And he's doing the whole thing, but he's ready like this, ready to go back, and just like if the guy moved in, or boom, blast the guy back, hit the guy, and then bring up his weapon. But because he went out there, and the whole thing is the nonviolent posture is a Trojan horse, the way we teach it. That where everybody was like, you need to get back, man. And they're talking like if you're trying to calm people down and you're holding a gun, that's body language for I have a gun and you might not. And right, it freaks people out. But if you can go out there like the Trojan horse, and the metaphor is, everyone just sees the horse, but inside of it, it's fucking filled with warrior spirit. And that's how we teach it. That you go out there, you're ready to fight, you're ready to move, you're ready to transition, you're ready to hit. And we break it down into preemptive and protective. Protective is the bad guy moves first, you deploy the airbag. And it could look like this. This is pretty fucking heavy. You can hear the weight of the water in here. So as a drill here, if I'm standing here like this and I got my hands in one of my postures, I'm going to simulate this guy goes to headbutt me, so he goes back and comes in. This is protective. I'm trying to diffuse this or create some space. And I go, oh, and the hands come up, and then I would shift from that position. So that spear of pushing away danger, finger split outside 90, is like the split jerk of self-defense. That would be a protective gesture, and that's the organic airbag. Doesn't matter how good a fighter I am. If he moves first, action's faster than reaction. If it truly surprises me, it's going to deploy the startle flinch. How do I weaponize it? Now I'm fucking safer. And then the other aspect that we practice and teach is preemptive. When I've got enough pre-contact cues and I'm going, okay, this guy's definitely, he just target glanced my gun. It's on, right? Something happens where I go, it's on. And now I use that same shit, man, where I might be here, and this is the index palm. This is the half spear. This is gesturing and I'm moving in, I'm on the guy, transit. So we teach all of this shit. We have 4 classic nonviolent postures and then a series more. But anyways, it's you can tell how fired up I am. I'm turning 61 in May, and this is the energy that I still have. And here, let me add this one thing here. Not that you have a choice because I haven't stopped talking yet. This is how much I love making people safer. When I started the garage gym to save my business, I didn't realize how much I missed teaching. And it was like, holy fuck, I've got students all over the world again, first responders, public safety professionals, cops, military, martial artists coming in, people who could never get access to me because of geography. And since 1993, I only taught twice a year to the general public in our train the trainer course for our personal defense program. All of my other classes, you had to be active duty something.
Right.
So they had never had access to me. So the pivot to the garage gym came full circle to me as a 20-year-old kid opening up his first self-defense school. And here it is like 40 years later going, wow. And I got goosebumps right now thinking about that. And it's where I've gotten like teaching is my canvas. And that's where I'm the artist. I fucking love that shit.
What a great story, man.
Thank you, buddy.
And I mean,
what a great story.
Tony, check it out, man. You're sitting here. We're doing a podcast, right? You're actually showing people stuff. So obviously for the listeners out there, if you're listening, sorry you missed that. You got to go jump on the YouTube and check it out. But dude, some quick snippets that people can take away and go, hey man, it's a start, dig deeper in, let's find out more about Tony the Spear system. And kind of on that, how can people, people are interested. Where do they get in touch with you? How do they get in contact? What's all your websites?
So depending on who you are, if you're military law enforcement organization, hit us up regarding hosting and I also have a free course. I'll send you links you can post.
Okay, great.
In there. But we've got a free program and I'll post it in the link. I'll send it to you. I should have sent it to you earlier. So you can drop it in the Facebook feed. But we can do that after. If you're active duty, we have a vetting process. So like, don't try and sneak in there. But if you're not, but I do 4 free classes online to introduce people to how do you weaponize the startle flinch? Because that's the most danger. Anyone in public safety is they're this close to a bad guy. They're moving towards a threat. I can look at that and go, oh, that guy's scary, and close my garage door and go inside and get my dogs and my gun, right? Where someone in public safety goes, that guy's scary, but I'm going to go ask him, what the fuck are you doing, right? And they're moving towards the danger. So I will tell this to all your listeners. I don't know who you are, where you're at. I don't care if you're trained or untrained, but one of the most important things after 40 years of studying violence, fear, and aggression is change your relationship with fear. I wrote an article, I wrote a little ebook called Making Friends with Fear. It has nothing to do with physical fighting. It's understanding the neuroscience of fear and how to change that relationship. It's a free ebook, and I'm going to be very transparent with you. You'll get into this funnel that's going to try and sell you our No Fear program, which could fucking change your life. But No Fear is spelled K-N-O-W, and it's all about changing our relationship with fear. But the ebook, I joke, it's only 9 pages long. You'll finish it in 7 minutes, 10 minutes if you're a slow reader. But the whole thing is like, it's 9 pages, but it took me 40 fucking years to write those 9 pages.
Yeah.
Right. It'd be like, Rick, if you said, hey, give me I want to pass on to my family the most important stuff on fear. Why do you want to read for 900 pages? Like, give me the shit and let's go. I just give me the information. Right. And so I would start there. There's a site we have that has all of our most, I guess, our frequently hit places, the link to the book, some of our upcoming training opportunities, link to the garage gym. And that site's easy. It's info.tonyblauer.com, info.tonyblauer.com. And that'll have most of our important shit. But if you go to Blauer Training Systems, if you're listening to this and you want to see like, what does this company do? Blauer Training Systems is just our main corporate page. because I do stuff corporately. I do coaching shit that has nothing to do with self-defense. And of course we do a lot of tactical stuff from tier 1 teams all the way down. If you are, we revolutionized a lot of the scenario-based training. So if you're not using our high gear suits, man, you got to check those out. But you'll get all that shit. Blauer, Spear. I'll send you all the links. There's too many.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes, Tony, and everybody can just click on it. But we always like to thank everybody for their service, and that is you are no exception to that. Thank you for your service. You've impacted and made a lot of first responders, military guys, and even civilians safer and more confident moving around this dangerous world, violent world we have. So thank you for your service, pal. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank both of you. It's an honor, and I'm glad we finally got to jump on this because Rick and I have been talking about it for several months.
Yeah, man.
Glad we did it.
Yeah, and the beauty is, Tony, hey man, you ever want to jump on board, or you got something to put out or something new or whatever, that's really the whole premise behind the platform. It's not about Rick and Mark. It's about, hey, whoever our guest is, let's get their message out there, and just another platform to do it. But brother, I really appreciate you taking the time. Fantastic. Hopefully we got some people smart out there on it, and they'll swing by the site. And because the garage gym, is that
5 days a week?
5 days a week. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Great. Awesome.
Yeah. What? 4 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is for general public, and then Fridays we have just public safety professionals only.
Okay. Awesome.
And then a lot of people, it's funny, like a lot of people go, they look at the times I do it because I teach them live. So if you're like, oh, I can't do that, I work then. And then some people go, I'm in Europe, I can't, the time doesn't work. And I'm like, they're all recorded. So this is like Netflix for self-defense. Like you just, you go look, and we'll do stuff like multiple assailant, ground fighting, tactical strength and conditioning. We've got blocks on all sorts of shit. It's amazing. And so each week has a theme. And, once you're a member, you have access to all of the past stuff. So you can jump in there, come train with me for a couple of months and see what happens. The worst thing that'll happen is you're going to get safer because I'm not teaching you a technique. I'm teaching you how to, I'm not even teaching you how to fight. I'm teaching you how to think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Huge.
Great stuff. Thanks again, Tony, man.
Be safe, guys. Thanks.
All right, pal.
You too, brother. Thank you.
See you, buddy.